in this lesson, we're going to finish out the boots. Alright, so let's come in, let's do just a couple of things. First of all, with the layer of the boot, I want to divide that. And I just want to kind of flatten out some of these areas a little bit. I'm going to use my trim dynamic brush to do that. So B, T, and then D on the keyboard. And some of the areas where I had created that seam, I'm just going to come right down the center of that, just flatten that out a little bit. And it's going to create a little nice crease right on the inside of that. And this will be a good place to go ahead and put our stitching for that boot. Okay, going to do the same thing here. Just trim that. And let's go around the edge of the top here. There we go. And I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab my stitch, basic, and you'll see that it gives us a single stitch. Let's go ahead and just give this a quick test. I'm going to go ahead and draw that on. It starts to stitch in there. You can do a single stitch or you can do a double stitch. So how do we get a double stitch? Well, this is being controlled by an alpha. So what I can do is I can go right up to brush, scroll down and go down to your alpha and texture. Instead of an alpha tile of 1, let's set that to 2. And then watch what happens. Okay, we'll start brushing that in. There we go, we get our double stitch. Very cool. Now I need a little bit more geometry for that to work properly, so let's hit Control D. Let's bring our draw size down just a bit more, so let's do something like 3 or 4. And we'll start drawing that in. Create a nice little stitch there. Got a couple of areas that's starting to miss a little bit. I'm not really sure why it's doing that. If we hit Shift F, you can take a look at your topology and kind of see how that's working there. But it may be just because of the angle that we're trying to draw that on. Let me hit Shift F again. Okay. Yeah, we'll try it. Let me go ahead and go to the stroke. Take my lazy mouse radius to 40. I don't know why that was all the way up to 100. That might help a little bit too. And it's okay to get a couple of misses here and there. Just kind of shows that off there. Alright, so we'll go all the way down the side. And then we're going to come down to this side here. We don't want these boots to look absolutely pristine. So when it looks like some of the stitching is missing in some of those areas, it's going to help with that. Okay. And again, if it's missing too much, go ahead and divide it again, because you just don't have enough geometry for that. Alright, now with this stitching as well, we want to go ahead and make sure that we add in these areas along the side of the boot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the boot. I'm going to hit Control D to bring that up. Now I could go ahead and start adding stitching right now, but that wouldn't be beneficial. What I need to do, actually let's go back down to subdivision, Shift D to do that. What I need to do is go ahead and grab my clay brush and make sure that I add geometry to this that just kind of looks like maybe folds in the boots a little bit. Just kind of get them to kind of puff out some. Not a lot. I mean, we're not talking like folds that we had in the pants or even in the shirt. It's just a change in shape in the boot. Okay, so we're going to get a couple of those. Going to get mostly horizontal shape changes across the top. Whenever it gets closer to the bend, like the ankle, you're going to get some more folds that kind of go across that like that. So we want to keep it nice and light. Nothing too out there. Get a fold that comes across the back here. And it creates a nice little silhouette too. So that, and then there we go. And then we'll go across the top. Now across the top may not be as beneficial because the pants are going to be covering this up. So you may or may not make that detail. Okay. And then just make sure that you kind of soften those edges a little bit, because again, even though it's a leather boot, it's still going to have to transition back into the original shape at some point in there. Okay, that looks good. All right, so now once you have that all set there, maybe make just a quick little bump here. Just a little bit of a change in shape there. Then you can go ahead and go back up subdivision levels, and you can see how it comes out nice and smooth on those areas. And that just kind of breaks up the weird look of that boot. Now we also need to make sure that we do that across the top of the boot. Look how pristine that looks. Let's actually go down subdivision level, a couple actually, and let's just add some more of those wrinkles. Where are they going to be? Mostly right across the front here and across the top. It'll look something like that. May kind of smooth that out across there. Just kind of keep the shape of the boot, but you want a few wrinkles and folds here and there. And then we'll go up, hit D on that, and there we go. So it creates a nice look there. I'm looking at the top of this boot. I just don't really like that. I'm just trying to look at the silhouette of that, and I just want to flatten that out a little bit more. So I'm just going to kind of trim that off. Actually, let me go down subdivision levels. Try to trim that off, maybe even smooth it out a little bit more. Smooth that, and I'll grab my move tool. All right, so we'll go back up our subdivision levels, and there we go. All right, so the final thing we need to do is go ahead and create the texture that we need for our boot, and this will be pretty easy to do. Let's go ahead and go up to our standard brush, and I'm going to use the stroke, the dots, and I'm going to change my alpha, and I want to use, where did it go? I want to use this alpha right here. Now with this, let me make sure I have the right one. Yeah. With this alpha, what I want to do is I want to change the orientation of this. So if I switch this orientation, I'm going to set my spin rate to 1. And what's going to happen is whenever I start lightly coming over the top of this, it's going to rotate that pattern. And so if I hold down Alt and I come in and I start to move around that, notice what it's making that do. Now, because it's trying to spin and I'm using the lazy mouse, that's a little bit of an issue. So let's actually take the lazy mouse step. Let's set that up to 10. And what happens if I hold down Alt, start dragging across that, it's going to stamp that in. And what's happening here? Let's take that lazy step. Sorry about that. Let's do 0.25. And you'll see how it begins to spin that, and it's not keeping it all together. So it creates kind of this nice little leather texture. And we could just go right over the top of our boot. We can continue to do so, okay, as long as we want here. And if we want a boot that looks a little bit more worn, we'll just continue to go over the top of that. Now, I don't want this to overpower, so if I just continue to go over that just like this and really take that overboard, that doesn't look so great. Okay, let's just make it as subtle a detail as possible. Do the same thing on the back side here. Just start to kind of break that up a little bit. Okay, there we go. And let's grab the boot. Let's do the same thing. Just kind of drag over the top of that, creating a nice leather texture to the normal. Okay, or it could be a normal map for that. Okay. All right, so now that we've got our texture, we're looking pretty good. Could be some final details that you may want to add. May want to add something like maybe a zipper on the inside. You could do that pretty easily. There's actually a brush for that. Let's see, where is it? Insert mesh, zipper plastic, or zipper metal. It's the exact same process of doing the curve. You just want to make sure that you create a duplicate of this boot, and then add that on there, and then make your changes, like adding kind of this bump on the inside. So if you use your standard brush, let's turn that alpha off, and we came in and decided, yeah, I want to do something like that. So what I would do is just kind of come in and build that up on the side of my boot. I would just kind of lift that up. Let me make sure I get a small draw size. So yeah, let's go ahead and build up the side of that on one side of the boot, and then on the other, just like that. And then your zipper would go down in between. Okay, of course you'd make your zipper first and then build up around it just like that. So I mean, that's something you could do too. Even that seam just like this, kind of breaking that up, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, just the way it is. So I mean, I could come in and kind of try that one more time. Build a seam, goes down the side of the boot like that. Okay, not too bad. Kind of like that actually. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that up to you. If you want to do the zipper, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to leave it off. I'm okay with the way this looks right now. Okay, so now that we've finished the boot, let's get the other side of the boot. At this point, you need to determine if you're finished or not. I'm finished with the boot right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my buckle. I'm going to go to merge down, and I'm going to merge down the strap as well. Down into the boot, we'll merge that down as well. And so now all of these pieces are part of the boot. Let's go ahead and show the body, okay, and the pants, pockets, the shirt, the eyeballs. Okay, so there's our character there. And with the boot selected, let's go down to deformations under geometry. Or actually, no, excuse me, not under geometry. Where are you? Deformation. There we go. Under the palette. And I'm going to go to mirror, and in mirror X, just simply click on mirror. Now you'll notice it mirrored over. What we need to do first is duplicate that. So don't forget that. So let's just simply duplicate. We've got another boot here. And then with that boot duplicated, mirror. And now we've got both. Okay, and they're separate pieces there. If you make changes to one, it's not going to make the change to the other. So make sure that if you decide to make changes to that boot, that you're using symmetry on that. Okay, and that will change that there. And of course, you need to make sure that you go ahead and merge those boots together. So if you want to keep them separate, you can do that. In this case, I don't, so let's go ahead and merge that together. So I'll merge down, hit OK. Now we have the boots together, and now if I make changes to one, it makes changes to the other. And one quick thing that I noticed about my silhouette here, whoops, looks like I turned on Lightbox by accident. I want to hit BMV for my move tool. One thing that I noticed about my silhouette was the inside of the boot wasn't as curved as I thought it was. Looks like I may have moved that out by accident. So I'm just going to bring that in, and there we go. Okay, so there we've got our boot. Now in between lessons, what I want you to do is I want you to grab the pants, and I want you to, of course, unhide the boot. Make sure symmetry is turned on, and I want you to move the pants out and cover up the legs and cover up the boots, and just kind of pull those around and get that situated. Because what we're going to do in our next lesson is we're going to come in and we are going to fix the pants here. We're going to bring that together. We're going to insert some hardware, and I'm going to show you how to finish all of that out, and then we'll start moving on to our next part of the character, which is the coat. And I'll see you then.